Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Rob Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification.
All right, we were hoping that, normally we've got Jared Brandon right there.
Yep.
He's out. He's in the process of moving to Tennessee, to Gibson, so he won't be with us tonight. But yeah, we've got Rob Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification, sitting with us again. He came back again, which is great. And we'll trick him into it next time again.
Well,
and,
you do have him chained to the floor.
True. Hey, everybody, it's Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are thrilled to death that you are listening to our show as per usual. And if it's not per usual, maybe this is your first time, welcome. We're really glad that you're listening because we have a fantastic show. We've got someone who is steeped in the YouTube lesson world and all kinds of other guitar community world. Person, who are you?
My name is Steve Stine.
That's right. And no doubt, if you've been on YouTube for any reason, if you've typed in the word guitar, I can almost guarantee you've seen him pop up and you say, man, look at that hair. Wow.
I thought it was the smile, but maybe
and
it is
the smile
hair.
and the chops and the everything.
The package total.
Yes, indeed. Steve is an esteemed, I guess you could say, teacher, instructor. What would you call yourself?
Yeah, I call myself an instructor. I actually started calling myself a guitar motivator because I always think,
Oh, I like that.
yeah, half the battle is trying to get people excited about playing and practicing.
Yes, practicing. Yes, playing.
Yeah.
Playing's what you get excited about, but then when you got to practice, that's another story. Well, we're gonna find out all about Steve's backstory, and he's helped out a ton of musicians. Hopefully, many of you out there, and if you are not familiar, boy, oh boy, do you have a great new resource. So we're going to get into Steve's world real soon. So welcome, Steve. And then we got a couple of announcements real quick. Rode Mics. We need to thank Rode Mics for supporting our show with these awesome pieces of equipment. We've got the Rodecaster Pro in front of me.
Yummy.
The Darth Vader of input boxes, I guess.
It's got lots of different colored push buttons.
And the Procaster mic and the articulating arms.
The Rodeticulators.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. So we want to big shout to Rode for helping us out throughout the years. They've been really great to us.
And this is a great piece of gear. All this stuff together.
Yeah, and it's not just for podcasting. They make it.
Yeah.
If you need a mic, they got the mics. So go check them out.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to call out. We get a lot of great messages and mail from everybody. And I just wanted to share one. This came from one of our Poobah level supporters on Patreon. And this is from Mal Sanders.
Yes.
One of the questions that I ask new people that come on is, so hey, why did you choose to support us? Mal says this. Okay, so why did I choose to support? He just answered it's like he's right here. For a couple of reasons. To join and be part of the guitar community, and because you support small builders. My full-time job is leading a digital product team, and I've played guitar on and off for 20 years. Last year, I started learning to build pedals as a hobby, but with a view to sell them as well. I'm focusing on Dan Arbach's go-to fuzzes, and my first prototype is nearly built. Very exciting. I added that in. He didn't say that. I learn a lot from you guys, but also love the authenticity of the guests and how they approach building as well. My main rig is a 1996 USA Strat and a Revolta Mondata with the 3 mini humbuckers. I have that going into a Mesa 2x12 Lone Star from back when I was playing tons of pub band gigs here in Australia. Hey-oh, he's from Australia. I don't have anything else to go like.
Isn't Rode
Australia.
microphones from Australia?
They are, so he should be very familiar. I know that's my.
That was terrible.
Sorry. His main pedals are a hoof, so that's the Earthquaker hoof. The Soloist, Greer Lightspeed, the Empress tape delay, and a JHS Kodiak trem.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of Stevie Ray Vaughan, the Black Keys, Gary Clark Jr., and Greta Van Fleet. Well, thank you so much, Mal Sanders, for sharing a glimpse into your guitar world.
That's cool.
We love hearing that from people, and please continue to send those in. We get lots of them. We love it. And that's the announcements.
That's all I got to say about that.
Also, actually, I do have one more, which is we got even Jared and I were talking, and we actually have a couple more really great things. So I think we're going to do another episode with Rob, where kind of like what we did
Nobody
with Jared.
asked me.
Well, we're going to do it. It'll be great.
Okay.
Steve,
You'll get the same pay every time.
Yeah. What we did recently with Jared as the resident pickup expert is that we asked all of our listeners to send in questions and just say, like, ask us anything about pickups. Actually, ask Jared about anything about pickups. And we had some fantastic questions. And amps is one of those things that people have loads of questions about amps. And
lots of questions.
We got the guy to answer them. So very excited about that. And you should be too, since now you are committed to doing it.
Okay.
I want him to focus on PV amps. Nothing but PVs.
No problem.
I can do that. We can do it.
No problem.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Steve, how many PVs do you own?
Let's see here. None.
None is okay.
None is still a number.
I have one for nostalgic purposes.
I like how he paused like he was looking around the room.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point in their life had a PV Bandit.
I feel like that's the case.
Well, that is true. I did have a couple of different PV amps when I was younger, but nothing now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into what's going on in our music world this week. Tony's going to start the dance, and then we're going to check out what Steve has going on.
Go ahead, Tony. What style of music are we doing today?
Just do the thing.
Can we do a rumba?
I'm not paying extra. You're on the clock, buddy. Go.
Okay. Jeez, I feel like I'm under pressure now.
Stop looking down on me.
You think you're better than me.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm distracting him. Sorry.
Yes. So, this week, I was busy. I think the last time we got together, we were talking a little bit about instrument insurance or collection insurance. And so I am getting some final bids from a couple of sources. And I am in the process of photographing and opening cases that haven't been opened for, maybe over a year or two. And
I thought you were going to say like 15 or 20 or something.
No, I don't. I try to open them at least once a year or so. But
big
tears over
give
here.
Him more attention than that. Once a year.
Once a year's fine.
I feel so sorry for you, Tony.
But it's kind of fun. We're kind of rediscovering some things that. I forgot I had that.
Yeah,
and then seeing the changes and things that I've done to it. So that's kind of been what in my spare time. I'm just going through opening cases, photographing. And
for Steve's edification, I don't know if you heard about this, Steve, but
So the story was there was a gentleman out in California that had his entire collection of guitars and amps stolen from part of the blame is on him, is on one of those self-storage places.
Right.
With a master lock on the door.
With a master lock on the door,
Oh, my goodness.
And some of his things started showing up at various places, and they've recovered like 17, but he had 80 or 90 guitars and 30 or 40 amplifiers and all kinds of stuff. And we kind of calculated it to be about close to maybe $500,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah, because we don't really know what was in there. We're just guessing if a lot of it was vintage, right?
Well, no, there's a list published of the stuff out there, and a lot of it is
then we should do the math.
Custom color fenders. And
you should do the math. I'm not touching that.
But it's kind of a sad story, and that prompted me to start, first of all, calling my insurance company to see what is covered under my homeowners, which, of course, isn't much. And my insurance companies actually suggested, there are at least 3 or 4 companies that's their specialty, is they for traveling musicians, they insure collections or touring gear and that sort of thing. So that's what I've been doing. But it's fun to rediscover sometimes. I mean, I've got a hard list of everything that I've got, but when you actually open up the cases and
plug it in
and say, oh yeah,
strum on it, you're like, oh yeah, why has this been in the case for a year?
Yeah, exactly. And why are these strings all black now?
Yeah, black, probably like deep red.
So that's what I've been doing.
Awesome. Steve Stine, what's going on in your music world this week?
Oh, doing what I usually do. I go live quite a bit, make a lot of content. I'm actually working on, ever since COVID hit, I was doing a lot of these sort of remote jams where I would get musicians from wherever in the world together. And then I would, they would send me their tracks that I would mix and master the audio and then the video. And I'm sitting on, I think, about 8 or 9 tracks yet or videos that'll be coming out. So this week I was doing some mixing of a couple of those songs as well. So
nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm sure, as we mentioned, quite a busy chap.
Yeah.
Are you sure you know how to work that?
That was said with resolve.
That video equipment. I mean, I don't know, you seem like you may not have much video experience.
Yeah. I spend quite a few hours a day with video equipment. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Awesome, Rob. How about yourself?
Yeah, so I've got a handful of guitars I use to test amps. Your stereotypical Tele Strat, Les Paul, and then a SG with P90s. Anyways, all different pickups. I've had all of them. I've switched the volume knobs, actually all the pots. Sorry, not the knobs, but the pots over to Mojo Tone. I think they call them vintage taper or something. But anyways, I prefer the taper and the build. They're really smooth and just really great pots. But point of this story is I have not put on a treble bleed on any of those guitars because I want to be very traditional. So the Les Paul is the 500K pots, the correct value caps, but no extras. And I finally broke down and put a treble bleed on one of the pots of my SG, and holy crap, why haven't I done this years ago? What a difference having that treble bleed cap and resistor network on there. So that's my week, is when I get time, I squeeze one in and adding those to all those guitars now.
On both the bridge and neck pickups?
Both of them.
Yep.
Both of them. It is such a difference. I mean, the SG, I'd roll it from 10 to 9, and all the high end would drop off the cliff and yada yada. And as soon as I put that cap and resistor on there, just beautiful again. So I've done it to the SG and the Les Paul. Now I got to do the Strat and the Tele. So
nice.
Yeah,
That's an outstanding story, Rob.
it's much overdue.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
How about you, Todd? What's new in your music world this week?
Well, let me tell you, people. So I've been doing these little, demos I hesitate even saying the word demo because
They're demos.
It's loaded because there's so many amazing demo people out there. And I determined to just say, you know what? I've got a minute. What can I cram in a minute? So that is the 1 minute wonder. I've been recording those with a Shure SM57, and it has been the whole time. I'm like, this kind of doesn't sound like how my ears are hearing it. But this is the go-to derp 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 derp. And Rob and I were talking, and he said, "Hey, have you ever tried the Sennheiser E906, which is a pretty familiar microphone to a lot of people? You've probably seen it." And many
a lot of
demo videos.
I've seen it popping
it's
up
got the little
a lot on
E
demos,
on the front and a little square thing. Anyway, so he let me borrow that. I listened to my playback for, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds. And I was like, okay.
Sold.
And hit Sweetwater immediately. And I was happy because it didn't break the bank.
What is the cost?
Oh, I think it was $125.
No.
Yeah.
Did you buy the right one? That's
906, not the 609. The 609's sub 100.
Really?
Yes.
They should quit making that one, by the way. But
Yeah, we talked about that. Anyway, so I was really happy. And what the difference is, in layman's terms,
wow,
which
you're
I
right.
am.
$129.95.
Yeah,
Holy.
I'm right about some things.
Wow, that's cheaper than it used to be. That's fantastic.
Yeah, lucky for me. Not so much for you.
Yeah. Well,
So, anyways, it gave a much better range. Now the 57 gives a really nice mid punch. But, a lot of these videos are being viewed on phones and everything else. It just gave a greater range of sound, a much more dynamic range. So I am thrilled to death to make the next one and actually hear it the way that my ears hear it.
Nice.
So, yeah. And so that's what I did in my music world this week. So thank you, Rob, for that great suggestion.
Yep.
And if any of you are sitting there going, hey, that sounds pretty good. Actually, Rob, you're telling me that you take yours to the gigs.
Yeah.
After this, I'm definitely taking mine and replacing it.
No, yeah, that's what I've got.
57.
I've got 3 of them, and I've always got one in my gear bag, and I don't question. What you do is you show up to the gig and you just pull it out and you go, where's the stand for this? Don't ask if you can use it. Just tell them.
Yeah.
That's what I do. But yeah, because you spend all that time dialing your tone just the way you want it, and the pedals and everything.
On the speaker.
Well, yeah. but then you leave it to the sound guy to put whatever microphone, wherever, and likewise I've got my cabinet marked with tape too, of where exactly.
Steve, do you have any? Do you have like a go-to for? I guess maybe what we could call easy recording or easy sound.
Like in the studio, do you mean?
Well, without like hardcore studio gear, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Oh goodness,
mics.
No. Well, what I do for a living, basically, most of my stuff is running direct. I have found my life is a whole lot easier if I don't have to mic things. So I tend to use the Camper a lot. I use a lot of plugins, things like that for the videos that I do. So my thing is pretty plug and play. When I show up for work and I want to record, I don't want to spend an hour trying to find the right mic placement. I just kind of like my life. It's just I keep things pretty easy. Yeah.
Well, you've been doing it long enough. I suspect. Yeah. That the path of least resistance is the one that is best.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Especially if you're feeling inspired, it's just easier to get things going and lay down whatever it is that you're recording for that day. So that's what I tend to do.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, Tony.
I'm told that
Tour Gear Designs patch cables. That was the answer you were looking for. I strongly.
You interrupted me.
Okay, what were you going to ask me?
Nothing.
That's what I thought. Listen,
but I am curious about the Tour Gear Designs patch cables.
Well, you should be because they're awesome. They are, in our opinion, the best ones out there for your pedal needs. Based on the very small and low profile cap on the jack plug.
It's very small.
It is like the size of the actual jack plug itself. I mean, so. And
I'm told the cables are very flat.
The cables are remarkably flat, and indeed, and a ton of different lengths. That's one of the hardest things when you go get patch cables. They're not in as varied lengths as maybe you'd like them to be. They've got, I think, about 12 different sizes in length. I could be wrong. I need to double check that. I keep adding new ones.
Yeah,
but I think the biggest one is like 2 feet.
That's a big,
and it's a seal. Sealed end.
That's a mighty large pedal board.
Well, I have one running underneath from if you go top left over to top right over to the left, then you got to zigzag down. That's where I run mine. So, anyways, extremely handy and extremely cost effective. The smallest one they have, which is 3 inches, is sub $6. This is a sealed patch cable.
Yeah.
No problems. So make sure you go to tourgeardesigns.com/discount/the guitar knobs. You're going to save 10% off your order. Not the one cable, because I know you're going to get more.
Just order a bunch.
Just order a bunch of them. Anyways, thank you so much to Tour Gear Designs for making an awesome product and for sponsoring our 4 on the Floor.
How about some of these?
Wow, that's a contender. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor. All right, Steve Stine, we cannot wait any longer. What are your 4 on the floor?
Okay, I'm going to go with the ones that I keep on a small pedal board that I bring with me. The first one is the Strymon Big Sky. Mm-hmm. And the second one is going to be...
No, just wait a second,
Not
Steve.
so fast.
What do you think this is?
This is not the Indy 500.
Yeah, you don't listen to this, in at the bathroom break, for Pete's sakes.
You got to go into detail. Tell us what you like.
Why the big sky?
Well, the big thing is for me, most of the time I don't use a lot of effects or anything. And so what's nice is to have something where I have a decent plate and a decent spring option. So I just load those into my first couple of banks. And for me, my reverbs tend to be really low. I'll run them usually about 15, 20%. And even for my solos and things like that, I've never been much of an effects guy, so I tend to run that a bit low. But that's my big thing is just having something where I have a really good plate and a really good spring available.
I'm with you on that. I run a reverb barely even on just to give it that little bit of air, like,
Yep.
Ambience.
Yeah.
Well, more air, really.
What's the reverb, the TC Electronics one that has the tone print?
Oh, Hall of Fame.
There you go. See, I used to use that and I really liked it, but I liked the ability of being able to have both of those, the plate and the spring, available just at will without having to switch things,
Yep. Well, and I mean, the Strymon has been mentioned many, many, many times for good reason,
Right.
And probably like yourself, I think the overwhelming majority have never gotten past like 3 settings or something like that. I have 192 settings, but I just use these 3.
Reverb.
Yeah.
That's me too.
But it sounds great. That's the big thing.
Well, that's the thing is, and sometimes, lately I've been kind of looking into the possibility of getting, I think Keeley's got one that's a delay and a reverb in the same pedal.
Caverns. I have that.
There you go. That's the one.
It sounds great.
I haven't checked it out yet, but I really would like to look at that one too. So as the older I get, the less I like to haul anything around. So the less pedals I have, a 212 versus 2 412s. And, back in the day when I used to do the Rockstar thing, I don't do that as much anymore. So,
Well, that is a good selection. What do you got for number 2?
Well, it's going to be another Strymon. It's going to be the Timeline. So
that's one of the other ones that I mentioned many times.
Yep. So for me, the ice delay, I really like. The dual delay I use all the time. The ducking capability, which again, I know Keeley's got that as well, but I really like that for different solos that I use.
Can you explain the ducking for those that may not be familiar with that?
Sure. Basically what ducking is that when you've got it active and you're playing, it keeps the signal of the delay out of the way until it realizes that you're not playing anymore, and then the volume comes up again. So
aha. See? Everybody, hopefully somebody learned that right there. And if everybody already knew that, well, there you go. It's affirmed.
How about number 3?
Okay, so number 3 would be, this is the pedal I would take if I was traveling. I'd bring the Rev G3. So for me, because I play in a lot of hard rock and things like that, it's nice to have that pedal available if I have to play in somebody else's rig that I'm not familiar with. And, maybe they don't have enough gain or something like I'm comfortable with for whatever it is I'm doing. I tend to use that G3 for that.
So is the G3, is it like a TS9 kind of thing or a clone?
Yeah, it would be more like a TS9, but it would have a lot more gain capability than that.
Cool. Is it like just a single tone knob or 2-band EQ or cool?
Yep, it's just single, yep.
Okay, so.
Yep.
Well, how about the number 4?
So my 4th one would definitely be the Morley Bad Horsey, the first version of that doesn't have the buttons or anything. It's just you push it, it comes on, you let it go, it shuts it itself off. So
now, what about the Bad Horsey beyond maybe what you just said? I mean, there's a load of wah pedals out there.
Okay, well, the big thing for me is that it's got a really wide wah, and what I tend to do, I don't use a wah a lot, but when I do use it, I use it more where, you press it down and you kind of hold it there, and, it's not big wahs, it's just really getting that high end frequency. And what I found was when I used to tour, if I brought the old school Crybabies and stuff, I could never tell whether the pedal was on or off because you got to click them. Yep. And of course, everything's so loud, now they have lights and stuff like that. But back then with the Bad Horsey, what I really liked about it was that, again, it was wide enough to, you could hear it through my guitar tone. And when I let go of the pedal, if I was, running around on stage or whatever, it automatically shut off, which was a good convenience.
Right. That is something that I have not liked about wah pedals. I always found frustrating. I never could have found something like, how are people like that is a really hard click, and you clunk clunk, and you have to get that on, and then find the spot that you want. Oh boy, that's why they made the auto wah.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, knowing that you have all kinds of fantastic digital equipment that you can go to, that is a pretty respectable 4 on the floor. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Gentlemen, we are going to begin the interview with Steve Stine.
Begin interview.
Yes. Now, just so I can get this clear, and we're going to send people to all the places that they can check you out while they're listening here. Are you immediately associated with Guitar Zoom? Are they one and the same? Because people are going to be looking, they're going to see all these things.
Yeah. So Steve Stine is fine, and Guitar Zoom is where you'd want to send anybody. GuitarZoom.com. I don't own GuitarZoom.com like a lot of people think. I work with Guitar Zoom. They basically, I create the content, and then they do all of the distribution, ads, all that kind of stuff. So we work in conjunction with each other. But yeah, everything that's just a real easy place to send everybody.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And if you happen to be perusing YouTube, you can look up Steve Stine, and you're going to see Steve Stine guitar lessons.
Yep, that's right.
And that'll have the link to Guitar Zoom too, in case you forgot that. Hopefully you're not driving while you're doing this. We strongly encourage you to at least pull over and enjoy. Okay, Steve, you've been doing this a while. And I don't mean that as in like it's gotten long in the tooth. I mean that as there are new pop-ups every day, and I believe that something like 89% of all of YouTube is guitar lessons and demos. But aside from YouTube, your effort, you've been doing this a while, and that means that you're really good at it.
Well, I appreciate that. I started teaching when I was 17. I was born in 1970. I'm 50 years old. So I started teaching in 1987, and I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. And basically, I just run out of time. I was in bands and playing, and I was a professor at our local college, and I was a Montessori instructor, if you know what Montessori education is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I had so many jobs, and I loved them all, but I just kind of ran out of time. And it occurred to me that what I really should try and do, because at that time, back in the 90s, the internet was still kind of a new thing. And so I started, testing out YouTube and stuff like that, trying to kind of figure out if I could maybe start teaching, instead of doing one-on-one lessons, I could start doing, 20-on-1 or 50-on-1 or something, so I could actually have some free time. And that's kind of where everything started.
And at what point did you transition from doing that to going into full-on superstar media maker?
It's been probably about 9 years now that I've been doing what I'm doing now, which is just creating content, creating guitar courses. I don't do any lessons anymore. I travel in the summer, which I haven't obviously since COVID, but normally I would do, I would perform and do stuff at NAMM and Sweetwater, which is online, which I'll be doing again this year, things like that. But yeah, so it's nice because I get to spend time finally with my family.
I would imagine that is a big part of a big bonus of this kind of thing, for sure.
Yeah, it was, I can't even express how life-changing it was. And so now, I'm very, very protective of my time. I used to, the problem, as many of us in this industry, you never say no to anything. You just, if you get an opportunity to do something, you do it. Yeah. And then you wind up realizing that you never have any time left. And so now, now it's very easy for me to say no to things if I think I'm not going to have time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Do you at all miss the one-on-one lessonry?
Yeah, I do. I live in a little town just south of Fargo now. We moved out just to have a bit more privacy out here, and I do a class out here once a year, maybe twice a year, just so I can stay connected. I mean, if I could travel more and spend more time with people personally, and not so much. I don't know if you guys have done lessons before, but the thing about doing lessons is after you do it for 20 years and you've been, teaching the same G chord and C chord and D chord, sometimes to the same kids weeks and months on end. It can get, I enjoyed all the time, but it can get overwhelming. And now I don't ever have to do that. So it's nice to be able to do classes where I'll take a group of people and we'll do, a beginner class or an intermediate class or whatever. And then, like I said, when I get to do my traveling, I usually bring a rig or we'll rent a rig or something like that, and then get together with, whatever Guitar Zoom students or whoever I can contact, and we'll sit around and jam together and talk about music. And I love doing that stuff. So yeah, there are some aspects of one-on-one that I certainly miss.
And some that you don't.
Yeah.
Well, that GCD thing, I don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of music, just so we can kind of get an understanding of where your head is started in all of this, like who are some of your favorite artists that you love to that inspired you?
Well, the first one for me absolutely was Ace Frehley. When I was like 9 years old, my cousin showed me a Kiss album, and I was like, that's it. I don't think I'm going to be a lawyer or anything. This is what I need to do. But once I finally got my guitar, I got a guitar on my 13th birthday. I was really into, obviously, the Joe Satrianis and Steve Vais and, all that kind of stuff. As I started playing, Randy Rhoads was a big one for me in the beginning. But, as growing up, I was really into Kansas and Styx and Ted Nugent and Rush, all that kind of stuff. So as soon as I got a guitar and started playing and realized that I could make things on the fretboard sound like the music that I liked, because I basically learned how to play by ear. And the only reason I say that is because at the time, living in Fargo, I had a guitar teacher, but I don't know what happened, but we really weren't seeing eye to eye. And so I had a buddy that taught me a couple of power chords. And then I just started learning, like, I remember High and Dry and that album by Def Leppard and
oh my God,
Blizzard of Oz and just different albums like that, where I would sit with the needle on the record and I would listen to 10 seconds and then I would lift the needle, put it back, listen over and over, and I would scratch my records, But Back in Black was another one, and so I just started learning how to play by ear, and it made sense to me. I didn't understand theory or anything until I went to college, but I just had a real good sense of being able to hear things and repeat what I heard.
So what was that first guitar when you were 13 years old?
I had a Hondo. It was a Hondo 2. It was a Les Paul style Hondo 2 that I do not have anymore, and I wish I did.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
Now, did you take any lessons coming up?
Just those ones I had in when I was a kid, like I just mentioned, just those, and that didn't last very long, couple of months, and that was over. And then when I went to college, it was a real eye opener for me because I didn't know how to read music, I didn't know anything about theory, and I remember my first theory class when I was a freshman. There must have been 60 people, 50 people in this big room, and by the end of that year, I think there was like 15 of us left.
I find that there's a little bit of separation. One's kind of the cerebral aspect of understanding, and then it's also playing. But like, as a player, what was something that you struggled with personally?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, one I can very much remember when I was a kid was bar chords. I mean, bar chords were almost the end of my career because I couldn't, which all of these things kind of lead to the reason I started teaching in the first place, because I realized that I had the ability of being able to explain things to people quite simply because of the things that I had gone through. So with a bar chord, I swear to God, it seemed like it was 3 months and I couldn't play this stupid chord, and then I was going to give up, and then I woke up one day and I could do it. And so I always tell people, that's the thing about guitar playing is sometimes it seems like you'll never get it, and then one day you'll just wake up and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah. Well, having a good voice and being generally good looking is also a bonus, to get people's attention. So well done there.
Well, I'm hoping someday I achieve those things.
Yeah. So we've got a whole bunch of questions. We're just going to kind of pepper you with them if you don't mind.
I got one.
Rob,
yeah.
Go for it.
Hey, I was wondering, what's your? You talk about you teaching and everything. What's your professional performance background? Like who have you toured with or played with?
Sure.
Or have you done local bands,
Sure.
national?
You bet. So basically, I played regionally up in the Midwest here. So I started playing in local clubs when I was, I must have been about 20. It was before I was 21. And played in cover bands. And because I was going to college at the time, I started teaching, all that stuff. So I would play on the weekends. And then I continued to play in different bands around this area. I haven't done a lot of touring. The biggest tour that I did was with, if you guys are familiar with Grim Reaper.
Nick Boca.
Yeah. So Nick and I are good friends. But before I even knew Nick, I became friends with Steve Grimmett, who was the singer of Grim Reaper. And he was actually, I was the best man, or he was the best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his wedding.
Oh, very
but
cool.
So when they came over to the States this last time, I toured with them. But no, I haven't spent a lot of time touring. I basically just became immersed in teaching. So when I got out of college and I was teaching, there was a point in time when I was teaching over 100 students a week. And that wasn't like group classes or anything. It was literally...
Hold on, 100? So you're teaching...
7 days a week.
Over 50 hours a week.
7 days a week I was teaching, yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. And I don't think Todd or Tony knows, but I actually taught private lessons for 20 years too. And I think at my max, I was like 70 or 75 students a week. Because 100 students in a week, that is hardcore.
Yeah, I was working at a company, a Midwestern company here called Schmidt Music, which I taught, or I worked for and taught at for many years. And they gave me this really big studio space. And so it just wouldn't stop. I had so many students. And so what I did was I started putting together these jams, because I was like, well, what do you do with a bunch of guitar players? They all want to be in bands, but nobody's in a band. So I started putting on these things called Schmidt Fest. And basically what I would do is I would tell everybody, I'd say, okay, if you can sing, or you can play bass, or you can play drums, or you have friends that could do any of those things, I want everybody to meet down here, next Sunday from 3 to 5. And all of a sudden I must have had like 200 kids that were in this space. Jeez. And I'm like, okay, so let's start figuring out what songs you can play, and then who among you could sing this song that this person wants to play. And they just became a really big deal here in Fargo, where it would be a 3-day event where every night, for a few hours, these students would perform. And since then, there have been bands that were formulated from there that have gone on that are still playing. I hear from students, because it's been a long time now, but they'll still be playing. So they formed friendships and played in bands together and different things because of those early days of putting those events on.
That's awesome.
That's remarkable. Yeah. I do really wish that it was called the Schmidt Show, though, because that would have been way funnier.
I wanted Steinstock, but it got outvoted. So
and then on the anniversary, it'd be the total Schmidt Show. Oh boy! See, it doesn't take much.
Well, I think there was a musical that was similar to your story. I think it was called The Music Man.
Yeah, right. Exactly. What do you talk? Anyways,
Capital
okay.
T, that rhymes
so
with D.
I'm going to ask a question, if you guys don't mind, really quick.
Go ahead, Todd.
Please, Todd. You have
It's
the
gonna be
floor.
really quick though.
Make it quick though.
Quick.
Very quickly. Can you spit it out?
Take too long.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Go ahead, Todd.
Next.
Todd,
what was the
anytime
question
you're ready.
again? I didn't hear the question. Sorry about that.
Todd, go ahead.
Tony, I will throw something. Okay. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in general?
Well, I remember, like if I go back into the 90s, how when Kurt Cobain, when Nirvana was popular, and how you couldn't have a student come in literally at any time that wasn't learning a Nirvana song.
Oh, yes.
So, a blessing or a curse, depending on what you like to listen to, it was just the same songs over and over and over, teaching those things. But it was at a pinnacle when kids were just into guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, those are always the best ones, because the, students that are there because their parents are making them take a lesson or something like that, it tends to not work out so good. But I remember that was just a really exciting time, not because I was a big fan of Nirvana or anything, but because kids were just really excited organically about learning how to play guitar. The big thing with teaching is that you really have to separate what you like and what you expect from them from what they like. And what they, because you could have a singer-songwriter that only knows a few chords, but if it sets them on a path musically to where they want to go, like my daughter, I have a 20-year-old daughter, and she and I perform together, and she's got an amazing voice, but she likes to play guitar, but she doesn't think of guitar the way I think of guitar, So that's the big thing is just trying to find a way of being able to reach, students in general, not just kids, but just students, on a level that makes them excited and again motivated to want to practice.
Do you find it easier to deal with younger students than maybe somebody that's older and kind of set in their ways?
No, to be honest with you, I think some of the more difficult students are the ones that have been playing for a while and have convinced themselves that things, the way they think about things is the way things are. And then you have to try and go, well, part of your problem is that you're thinking about this wrong. Or if you would reassess some of the things that you're doing, that's kind of where your problems lie. The most frustrating part, needless to say, is when you get a student that just has no interest in being there other than they like you. So they don't want to practice anyway. But I would say those are some of the harder students are the ones that, because you're really trying to figure out what can I do to make this easier for you or make your journey more successful. And when they're combating you going, well, no, I was told this, or, I learned it this way. And you're going, well, that's okay. But there are other things that you should be thinking about.
The guitar is a pretty magical thing because it gives you power. It makes you feel like garbage. It can scare you. It can make you, just feel so accomplished. But ultimately, when it comes down to I'm playing, I'm sort of seeing myself in a dream state of what I'm doing. That is different than saying, okay, I have to actually learn how to do this. Do you find that is something that people, when they are taking lessons, that it's difficult for them to drop, or do they more readily abandon it once they have sort of given up to say, yes, please teach me?
The thing about guitar, I'll just say this before I answer that. The thing about the guitar, I always tell people it's like a Pandora's box. When you open it, it's endless. It seems like there's only a few fundamental things when you first start playing. You learn how to play these chords and then you strum. But as you keep going, it just goes on forever. And I always tell people the guitar will win, like we'll die before we ever figure out everything there is with the guitar, because you just can't. And so the hard part is that when you're trying to teach people, you're trying to figure out how to get, and I'm not sure if this exactly answers your question, but you try and give them snippets of things for them to experience an element of success and taste what the guitar has to offer, right? Without opening that door too far to where it becomes overwhelming, because then people are like, well, my buddy was talking about Phrygian and I don't even understand. And you're like, wait. There's no reason to even be worrying about that at this point, because all you're going to do, and this is the positive and the negative of social media, namely like YouTube, is that, yes, it's wonderful because you can go on there and you can find all this information, but it's terrible because you can go on there and find all this information.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And then it's sort of like, I felt immediately overwhelmed. The minute I was like, this is awesome, I like doing this, I want to do this. And then I opened the door and I was like, it's like, cool, just count the grains of sand on the beach and you will be a guitar player.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing is that's the problem with it. And when you're, I was just talking to someone earlier today about this. If you're already an established player and you want to jump on YouTube because you want to learn a new pattern or a new sequence, or you want to learn, a concept or whatever, you've already got a bunch of those building blocks in place. So it's not going to deviate you. But if you're a beginner, you don't know what you don't know. So you go on there and it says beginner in guitar and you're going, oh, well, I'm supposed to learn. I remember having students that would come in and, they're absolute beginners. And I say, so what kind of stuff have you learned, or what kind of stuff do you play on the guitar at this point? And they'll go, well, my teacher taught me how to play a G major scale. And then they play me a G major scale. And I would always think in my head, well, what good is that doing this kid when he can't even play a song, but he's got to learn a G major scale? Like, there's picking involved, single note picking, transition from string to string, and just the concept of what are you going to do with a G major scale? It's just one of those matter of fact things that you teach somebody because you're supposed to teach them that, versus, and again, this is just my own take on this, but if I could take that kid and teach him something that he can relate to, he's probably going to practice more because he's making an actual connection.
Yep. Hey, Steve, I think we're the same kind of age group that we were the ones taking over from the old guard of teachers that were, have to teach from a method book. It has to be done this way.
The Mel Bay system.
Right.
I have never used a method book in my entire life of teaching.
The only time
Never.
I would use it would be the really, really young kids where they literally don't have a favorite artist yet, the 5-year-olds or whatever.
Sure.
I would use, but then, as they grow up, but I think we were of this the same age group where it's like, okay, what bands are you into? How can I connect with you to make you want to practice? I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, get this.
Like you said, with
So,
goals.
That's right. So I'll tell you this. I told you I started learning guitar at 13, and I did, but I did have an experience when I was 9 years old where I got an acoustic guitar from my uncle, and this thing was, it could have been used as a bow and arrow. The strings were so far away from the neck, but I didn't know any different, right? So I'm trying to learn, and that's what he gave me. He gave me this Mel Bay book. Mm-hmm. Well, I had nobody to teach me, and I'm trying to read this, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck a chord chart is, and what is a G chord. Right? I mean, if you don't know anything about anything, what is a chord, let alone what is a G chord? What does a G mean? Mm-hmm. And it was just an awful experience. And I tried to play for about 2 weeks, and I gave it up because it just, what's really funny is I remember seeing Ted Nugent on TV, and this is no lie. I remember seeing him on TV, and he was doing a solo or something. And I kept thinking, he must be faking because my Mel Bay book doesn't leave the first 3 frets.
Yep.
Because I didn't know, I had no idea. So that's the thing is with that Pandora's box, there's so much information that if somebody isn't really given the information at the logical time, it just becomes overwhelming and people quit.
Well, yeah, and I know when I was teaching, the internet was started really hitting when I was probably doing it maybe for 5 years or so. But I started having the influx of students, as I'm sure you did, where they were coming in going, "Hey, look what I just learned from the internet," and where they start sharing this information. It's like, "Oh, well, you skipped A, B, C, and D and went right to G, and you don't understand what you're doing."
That was actually me,
and you learned it wrong, and
right,
all those things. So I'd kind of segue into what you're doing now. I watched a couple short snippets on YouTube of you, and I'm going to guess here that you're trying to put it into a organized and directly useful way.
That's right. And the big thing too is trying to offer small pieces of information. Mm-hmm. On YouTube, that's the best you can do. If you try and go into a large dissertation of something, a lot of times it's just too much for a lot of people. But if you can give them small amounts of information, that they can digest, it's something that's useful. Then the other option, or the other thing I think about is making sure that there's multiple options. There's not only one way of playing a G chord. Mm-hmm. There's not only one way of playing a G major scale. I mean, there's lots of different things. So, if you have a person that says, well, I can't, play this chord this way, my hands are too big, my hands are too small, I'm missing a finger, blah, blah, blah. God knows what it would be. It doesn't mean it has to be the end of the road. There are alternatives. And so, I always try and make sure that people understand that you have to find, like I just went live today and I was talking about these 3 Aussie licks. And the most important thing was getting that, during the live thing is for people to understand there's multiple ways of approaching these things. I was doing it because it was a chord melody connection thing. That was what I was doing today. But the point is that not everybody's going to play it the same way. And you know what? It's fine. We don't have to play it. You don't have to play it the same way Randy Rhoads played it. You have to find a way that works for you.
Well, yeah, and to that point, and something I saw that you did too is a lot of people, instructors, describe it one way, the way that makes sense to them. Mm-hmm. Where, I saw that you were doing, you would kind of approach it from a few different angles at the same time and say, we could think of it like this. It's, I think one of them was talking about pentatonic major and here's a pentatonic minor, here's to pentatonic major, or you can think of it as this form and,
right.
Which I think is really important because not everybody learns the same, Yeah.
Well, that's right, because one person might connect with the first idea and somebody else will connect with the second idea. And that's really the point is, I've been playing, and I've been playing my whole life and I can't tell you that I've got things figured out. I mean, I've certainly got a pretty good plan of what I think in my head, but that doesn't mean that I don't come across something and go, oh God, I never even thought about playing it that way before. Mm-hmm. You know?
By the way, that new video has already got about 2,000 views, so well done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You just said something that I think is interesting, and this was my first impression when I watched one of your videos. I haven't learned everything. I don't know everything, and I felt like I was being shown something from somebody who learned it the same way, who is interested and still wanted to have that connection and be like, hey, here's something cool that I learned, and I think you might you might benefit from it too.
That's exactly it right there. And the point is also, you know, and again, I'm not trying to be weird about this, but there's no reason why you can't make somebody feel good about the information that they're learning, so they can look at you and go, wow, I believe this guy. You know, I sense that he's trying to really help me. It isn't, you know, it isn't just for an alternative motive or something like that. But, you know, that to me is, listen, I'm going to live and die a guitar teacher. That's what I do. I love to play on stage, and I wish I could do it more. But if I had to do one or the other, I would never give up my teaching.
Interesting. Well, thanks, Tony. Jeez, Tony's dead, everybody. I'll take his questions from here on out.
Weird.
Damn COVID.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious.
That was the Polska kielbasa that you just ate.
It could have been the kielbasa. At this point in time, how many lessons are you up to that people can tap into?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, online, I've got, you know, for free stuff, there's probably, because we've got 3 different channels on YouTube. So there's probably 1,400 videos, something like that.
Now,
and then with Guitar Zoom, I think I've made about 70 guitar courses, something like that.
Wow.
So is the Guitar Zoom, is that like a one-time you purchase per month or subscription thing, or how's that work?
Either one. I mean, I release new courses on a regular basis, and you can buy one-off courses, or you can join the membership. And with the membership, you get a bunch of different courses, but then you also get, during the membership, there's smaller bits of videos as well. So instead of, you know, some people like to consume a course because they want to go from the beginning to the end and learn everything that there is in there. And some people just, again, want to be inspired. They just need a new lick, or they need to understand, again, what is the Phrygian scale, things like that. So there's lots of videos like that in there too. And then I do like songs, you know, how to play different songs, and the same thing, you know, learn how to play a song, but look at different aspects of how you could approach playing the song, you know, or maybe you're learning the solo, but a certain lick is too hard. You might approach that a different way, or maybe you want to improvise over it. So you need to know what scale you're dealing with, what key are you dealing with, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So with all of those available, I mean, how do you come up with fresh ideas, you know, every day, every week, however often you release them? Do you take?
I have websites like Trello and things like that. I have literally thousands of topic ideas. And anytime I'm watching another musician or a band, or I'm listening to something, there's not a day that goes by that something doesn't click at me and go, oh, I should talk about that, or I should do that. So, and what I do is I log everything that I think about. So I have just an endless supply of stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I've got 4 shorter questions that I think are key to kind of making you decide to get into lessons, or better understanding your own approach into a lesson. Okay.
Okay.
Question number 1. What do guitarists struggle with the most?
Depending on which stage they're in, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're in a beginner stage, they usually struggle with being able to make chords and strum at the same time.
How about the mid stage, when you think you're like, I got this, and then you're like, crap, I can't, I'm plateauing?
It's usually speed. I mean, if we're talking a technique, it's usually, and it doesn't have to be like shred speed, but playing fast enough to be able to play songs that they like, you know, alternate picking, shifting strings, things like that. That's what most people struggle with. Okay. On a theory level, it winds up always being modes. Like, people just fall apart when it comes to modes.
Yeah. That's,
you know?
I took algebra 4 times and never passed it. So that as soon as I start hearing that language, it honestly, it just rattles my cage.
Well, and you asked earlier some things that I struggled with when I went to college. Again, I didn't know how to read notes. I knew nothing about music theory. So it was an eye opener for me. But I remember when my guitar instructor in college first mentioned modes, and either he didn't describe it well, or I wasn't listening, and it very well could have been I wasn't listening.
Or both.
Or both, yeah. But I remember being terrified, because I was like, God, I just learned all these major and minor scales, and now I got to learn modes. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, this is like, 78 scales I got to learn, or whatever it is. And never realizing that they actually just all come from the same. Yeah. And see, I didn't realize that. So that's another thing that is always fun to teach people is I always tell people modes are so easy. They're hard. You know,
I haven't opened this door up yet, but
subscribe for. I'm sure he's got a lesson.
I know,
right?
but you know, like think about when we first got when the iPods first came out. It was like, how do you do this? How do you turn it on? What is it? I don't understand. And it's like, oh, you just push the button and it opens everything up. And that's kind of based on how you're talking about this. Maybe that's a way for me to put it in my brain to where I could actually maybe learn that.
You know, and what you could do is if you get time, if you go on YouTube and you type in my name and you type in modes, there's a video on there that's got, I don't know, 1 million views or something like that, that is about modes. It's a live thing that I did. And it's a great, easy introduction to understanding how modes work. It's not the whole story, but at least it gets you on board and doesn't cost you anything.
I'm going to commit to doing that.
Hey Todd, real quick, what was your last question again? Because I had...
The last question was, what do guitarists struggle with the most?
Oh yeah. Hey, Steve, tell me if I'm right about this. What I found for all my students, generally any age group, it was organization and time management.
Absolutely. And that's still something that is a struggle, is getting people to understand. And now we live in a world where everybody wants to multitask, and you try and explain to people that multitasking is a myth, right? It is. We all do it. Well, but the truth is you're giving less to each thing than you could if you just focused on one thing. And so learning how to focus when you practice and really having goals that you're trying to achieve are really important.
I don't know how many times I would have a student come in and he wasn't making the progress he should have been. I'm like, okay, are you practicing 5 days this week, 30 minutes a day? He's like, oh yeah. I was like, describe your practice. And he's sitting in the living room with the TV going on, and it's like, dude, you're doing everything but practicing at that point.
That's right.
You know,
I always tell people practice on the days that you eat.
Yeah,
that's good.
So, what are some of the biggest mistakes that players make from your perspective?
Well, it depends on where to go with that. I mean, I think one of the mistakes that people make is that they spend too much time in the micro thought and not in the bigger picture. Like, you spend 3 years trying to master the crap out of this speed lick that you're learning, instead of having spent time with other musicians and maybe formed a band and made music together. Maybe it wasn't exact and maybe it wasn't the fastest song on the planet, but you're living a musical life with other musicians or other friends.
It doesn't have to be perfect to move forward.
That's right. And getting caught in the weeds, just people always getting caught in the weeds with certain things. They're learning a song and then all of a sudden they get to measure 7 and now that measure has derailed them for the next 6 months, where maybe you just weren't ready for that measure 7. Maybe there's a million other things you could be doing. And if you come back to that 6 months later, you're going to go, oh my God, that was really easy.
Awesome. All right. I got 2 quick things. What most commonly makes people quit?
The lack of motivation. They're not finding a connection. And again, I had mentioned the 90s with people being really into it. We moved forward 10 years, and now all of a sudden you've got a lot of kids that, and again, I don't mean to just talk about kids, but you've got a lot of kids that aren't making a connection to music that's guitar driven. So now they're sitting in the studio with you and you're trying to teach them chords and you're not really finding music that they can even listen to or that they're interested in listening to that really even has any kind of guitar thing. We grew up with riffs, right? So you heard a riff and you went, I want to play that riff. Well, now all of a sudden we're dealing with music that isn't really riff based anymore. And it's just chords and things like that. And so I think that's part of it is you need to find a way of keeping, well, not you necessarily, but the student needs to find a way to stay motivated. And part of the way to do that is to find a proper teacher that can keep them motivated. But you have to have a love of music with the instrument in it. If you're trying to learn how to play guitar and all you're doing is listening to hip hop music, it's really tough to make that connection.
I was just going to add on to that I think that if you are playing new stuff, it's interesting that you touch on that because I have this conversation with my kids and other music enthusiasts, which is it's the age-old thing of like music's not as good now as it used to be. Well, and that's not exactly what I'm saying.
It's true.
But as a guitar player, I think you have to be able to sit with yourself, making a connection with the music that you're playing.
Well, and that really is the magical element. Is if you think back when I was a kid and I was listening to music, because I was an avid music listener. My parents listened to a lot of music, a lot of diverse music. And so when I started playing, what you're saying is exactly true. When I could take the riff that I had heard 500 times because I love that song, and all of a sudden I could make it make sense on the fretboard with my fingers, it was the greatest feeling in the world. Like I needed, it was like a drug. I needed more of that. So at this point, I'm not thinking about theory. I'm not thinking about speed. I'm not thinking about whatever. I'm just making an honest, raw musical connection to something. And I think I still think that's the most important thing, is whether it's guitar or whether it's, somebody playing another instrument. I mean, guitar is all I know, but even if it's somebody learning how to sing or learning how to rap or whatever, if you can make some sort of connection to it that's real, that's what gets you hooked forever. But you got to make that connection.
The other night I was, it's usually when I'm getting ready to shut the guitar down that I end up kind of like stumbling on something that's very interesting. So maybe I should just turn it on and then shut it down, right?
Yeah, every
and not
minutes,
waste all the time in the middle. It's like a basketball game. Really, just get to the last 2-3 minutes, and that's what it's all about. But I found myself, as I often do, playing this riff that I came up with, and I'm like, man, I've been playing this for a half an hour, and I want to play it for another half an hour and another half an hour after that.
Right.
And that's that thing.
And meanwhile, your wife and kids are saying, when is he going to stop playing that pleasant riff?
Well, but then I say, oh, I gotta actually record this, and I send it to my band, and they're like, oh, that's awesome, and it's like, man, what an amazing feeling that is.
Yes.
So
well, and that in itself, like you just said, is an amazing feeling too. That a lot of people don't realize is you don't have to be, a guitar genius to write some fun stuff and give it to your drummer or your bass player or your singer or whoever, and just bash out some stuff and have some fun. Everybody has this. Yeah, social media has made everybody so worried about saving face. Everybody's got to be so good at stuff before. And it bums me out sometimes because, again, people are missing out on the realism and the fun of what this stuff can be if you stop worrying about trying to be, the best player on the block. And I'm being a hypocrite by saying that because when I was growing up, I was trying to be the best guitar player on the block.
I think you can want to be that for yourself, but you can really only compare yourself to yourself.
That's right.
And not, the thousands of people that are on here.
Well, and that's the thing is now social media gives us millions of people. So it's really easy to get down on yourself. It's okay to use that competition, that competitive nature, if it's benefiting you. But if all it's doing is making you hate playing or making you frustrated with playing or frustrated with yourself, which is what I see a lot.
Yeah.
Is people go and look, I just, I hate the way I play. I've been playing for 3 years and I suck. And you're like, look, I don't think you suck. I haven't heard you play, but I think it has a lot to do with your perspective on what you expect out of yourself. If you stop, like he said earlier, if you stop and look at how much time you actually spend really practicing, really focused on what you're doing, and sometimes it's not easy. I mean, if you're 40 years old, you have 3 kids, you have 3 jobs, one of the jobs requires you to travel. It's not always easy. We could make it seem easy. I can, because I can practice as much as I want every day. Everybody doesn't have that luxury.
Sure.
So, you've got to find a way of being realistic with what your goals are. Set your goals down a little bit and find a space where you can be happy with what you're doing. Stop trying to, I always think of it as, levels on a ladder or rungs on a ladder. Stop trying to go 10 rungs up. Just find the next one. What's the next logical place for you to go to feel good about yourself?
Yeah. I tell my creative team at the agency I work at, whenever things get kind of hairy and we start worrying about the projects and everything, I say move the block, not the pyramid.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great term. That's a great phrase.
So speaking of finding the thing and locking it down and getting committed, as we outro here, tell us about Music Theory Made Easy 2.0. That's at the top of your YouTube page.
Yeah, this is a new course that I just did. I have a music theory masterclass that's like 14 hours long. and it's a big in-depth study in music. Well, then a number of years ago, I had made this course called Music Theory Made Easy. And it was really meant for, again, if you watch that YouTube video, that's the kind of music theory that it is getting people's feet wet with just understanding the basics of theory and the things that you really need to know on a daily basis. Not going off the deep end, but just really staying with stuff that's logical. Mm-hmm. And what I did was I decided, now that I've got a new studio and everything's 4K and that sort of thing, that I would revisit that course. So I went back, I watched the whole course and took notes on things that I would do differently this time around, some things I would add, some things that I thought maybe didn't need to be in there, and then redid the course.
Awesome. And it says get $50 off and 5 brand new bonuses. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I don't know what the bonuses are. I never know what those things are, but
they are brand new.
Good.
I'm sure they're good.
Yeah. Well, Steve, we can't thank you enough for spending the time, and we know we juiced this lemon because we had the opportunity, so we wanted to make sure we got as much great information for our listeners as possible, and we thank you for shelling out as much of that information as you were able to. We are going to now dip into the Would You Rather, and then we're going to see everybody out.
Sounds good.
Antoine?
All right, I've got some big shoes to fill.
Yes, you do.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah. Jared's 6'7" and about 350, so he's the one who usually does this.
Yes, he has big shoes.
But he sounds like a little
So this is he has the voice of an angel. So I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's at this point of the show, the point that everybody loves, a segment we like to call Would You Rather?
That's pretty good until you lost it at the end. You just couldn't make it.
I Jerry Lewis'd it.
Yeah, you kind of did. Hey. Okay.
This week's Would You Rather is brought to us by John Jackson.
Yes.
One of our executive producers. Friend of the show.
Indeed.
So you're walking down the street and you spy a store that you've never noticed before.
Oh.
It's an old-timey pawn shop.
I'm intrigued.
Old-timey. You peer into the window, and it's like all this stuff.
I like to go to places to see completely useless things.
Well, in this case, not everything is completely useless, because you notice tucked up in the corner is this very old guitar.
Oh.
And it's got dirt and grease and grime, and it just looks really, really bad. But you pick it up anyhow. It's kind of cool looking. And you rub it with the sleeve of your shirt.
Get the dirt and grime off.
To get the dirt and grime off, just so that you feel a little bit. You don't get tetanus or anything like that. All of a sudden, whoosh, a genie appears.
Oh, a guitar genie?
A guitar genie.
Okay.
Now, this guitar genie has some limited powers, because normally, the routine is you get 3 wishes.
Yeah.
And, of course, one of the wishes can't be to wish for 3 more wishes.
Right.
But this genie says, look, I've had a long day. I've been stuck in this guitar for the last 50 years. You get 1 wish.
Boy, what a neck ache.
But the limited powers of this genie are actually kind of cool, because you get a choice. You get a time travel back to London, England.
Ooh.
In one of 2 decades.
Oh.
1967 or 1977.
So he's a rock and roll genie.
Oh, well, obviously he's a rock and roll genie.
Holy mackerel.
So would you rather travel back to jolly old London, England in 1967 to see a one-night only show? Or in 1977 to enjoy the nightlife and the sounds and the
such
sights?
A good question.
It's a very good question.
Okay.
It is good.
Tony Baloney's going to kick it off, and then we're going to go to Rob, hit Steve, and then I'll finish it up.
Okay.
All right, Tony.
Well, this is a very tough question as I read it, and I was like, oh, wow. So I was just barely too young to do the 1977 stuff in person, but I love the music from both of those eras. You know, in 67 in London, you'd have Pink Floyd, which they were known as the Pink Floyd back then, amongst other bands, the beginning of psychedelia.
Jimmy was there.
Jimmy who?
The Jimmy.
Jimmy? The Jimmy?
Yeah. Jimi Hendrix.
How about Jimmy Page?
Jimmy Page was there.
He was in the Yardbirds then. And then in 77...
there's a slew of...
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's...
Pick your act.
Yeah, and then, the Beatles would show up at various shows and stuff like that, Lennon, McCartney. But then in 77, you had fallout from the Sex Pistols. You had the Clash in full bloom. Yeah. All the other cool bands. The Ramones would have been probably over in London at that time.
That's right.
Adam Ant was starting out.
In 77?
You were right after all the Sex Pistols stuff. They went.
No kidding.
Susie and the Banshees, all those guys.
They're all there.
All came out of that. Generation X.
Yes.
From, Billy Idol fame and all the, that spawned.
Yeah, that's right. 77, 78. That was like a watershed year.
Rock and roll explosion.
So I think if I had to choose one of the two, I think I'm going to do the 1967 because in my younger years, I was still able to see the Clash live. I saw Gen X. No, I didn't see. I saw Billy Idol live. That's almost Gen X.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the bands that were still together from the late 70s from the UK. So I've seen some of that, but it would be really cool to be in that scene at that time. But in 67, I really wouldn't have had an opportunity to do that. So I think I'd like to do that and just, that would have been like the whole Austin Powers thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, baby. All right.
So I'm going to 67.
Okay. Rob?
All right. 77. Because of the location. UK. For me, 67, if this was anywhere in the world, because I think a lot more is happening in America for a lot of yeah.
It was almost a harmony.
Like the late 60s, mid to late 60s. Well,
Yardbirds.
Absolutely. Where's Motown? Talk about music.
That's in Detroit.
That's what I mean is holy crap, the late 60s.
Uh-huh.
That's right. But anyways.
True. Okay.
But being UK, 77, new wave of British heavy metal, that's right when that was starting.
The music scene in the U.S. in the 77 was just miserable.
And over there, you had Iron Maiden, Sabbath, and come on. It's
Priest.
We could do this forever.
Yeah.
77.
Yeah, well, Steve's chomping at the bit on this one.
So there you go.
Do I even need to answer, really?
All right. So we got a 67, a 77.
We're at odds. We're usually in agreement on stuff, so that's odd.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind you.
Okay, Steve, enlighten us. Wait. I'm gonna tell Tony what I think you're gonna say. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I think you're wrong.
I would, as much as I love the bands from 67, I would absolutely go with 77. Because we're talking Sex Pistols, the Clash, the Stranglers. For me, the Ramones are one of my favorite bands. But then you go back and you've got Iron Maiden with Paul Di'Anno at that time, early Judas Priest, stuff like that. So that stuff was, again, I love stuff from the 60s, like Pink Floyd and stuff. But I would definitely go with 77.
Okay. Well,
I think Tony's going to be on an island all by himself again.
No, I think Todd's going to be on there with me.
No, are you kidding me, dude? I've got a Clash tattoo. Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
I'm going 77 Clash.
Yeah. Have you ever seen his band?
I fronted a Johnny Clash. It was called. I fronted a Clash tribute band for like 6 years.
That's awesome.
Tony, how well dost thou know me? That's not real English or even bad English. It's terrible. Anyways, yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding me? 77
Tony Island one more
the
time.
Clash.
Yeah.
Oh,
You've got a skill.
Well, I'm trying to think, did the Ramones make it big in England in 76 or 77?
Well, I think the tour in '76 really, brought them to the big forefront.
Okay.
But, because they were at CB's probably in '75, maybe. I think they were one of the early ons at CBGB's, and then but that there's a live album that was recorded.
The timeline is
in 76.
very, very murky right there because, damn, New Rose is like one of the, the argument of which came first, the chicken or the egg, as far as the Ramones, the Pistols, the Damned.
Well, the Ramones were there first.
Well, I'm just saying.
They're both the Clash and the Sex Pistols members do credit the Ramones for helping them.
Yes,
make
but
the decision.
in the UK, not counting the Ramones.
Right.
On today's Ramones podcast.
Anyways, I actually have I got a New Rose of my own on my shoulder. That's what that one's from. So
that's nice.
Yes. Okie dokie. That was a really great Would You Rather. Thank you so much for sending that in.
John Jackson.
Tony's got a few people to thank. Then we're going to say adios to our friend Steve Stine. And then you guys can actually close the door, turn off the car, and go back in your house to see your family. Okay.
Just put the headphones on. Nobody needs to be the wiser. Well, Todd, at this point of the show, there's a special group of people that we like to thank. Mm-hmm. These are our executive producers.
Correct.
In fact, one of our executive producers gave us our Would You Rather this week.
That is true.
Now, what is an executive producer, you might be asking? Well, it's quite simple. You're a sponsor, a patron of this program. You make this program possible, this podcast. How do you become one? Go over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Each level comes with a great bevy of prize packages that are T-shirts and
all the stuff, all the goodies,
picks.
Lions and tigers. And
I just got a whole new shipment of T-shirts in.
Got new T-shirts. We got barefoot buttons. We got all the good
goodies.
stuff. But as an executive producer, you get all that great stuff. But there's one more thing, Jared. What is that?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
That's right. Your name read on the thing. That's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers: Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, John Daly, Chris Carney, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Ken Sayers, Brian Robison, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Johnny Knowles, Anthony Lanthrop, John Englund, Tyler Bray, Brad Partridge, Chris Heidel, John Esterly, Doug Gann, Justin Jones, Brett Alexander, James White, Matt Hart, Bill Gola Guitars, Richard Kendall, Ty Carmen, John Jackson, Jason Roush, David Rando, Douglas King, Gary Cooper, Lumberjack Components, Mark Garton, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D., Trevor, I'm going to screw this one up again. Trevor Gunberg and Clem Fandango.
Oh, stop it. Yes, I hear you, Clem Fandango. Okay.
Todd, don't interrupt me.
I'm sorry.
Because in addition to these executive producers, we have a special group of executive producers. We like to call them our Grand Poobahs.
That's right.
And what's even more exciting, this week, we have a new Grand Poobah.
Oh, bring it.
These guys hang out on the penthouse suite.
Yep.
They wear a fez while listening to the podcast.
Even more goodies.
They have individual hot tubs where they soak.
Yes, that all glow orange. They all have LED orange lights in them.
They drink orange Gatorade.
Yep.
So it all ties together. So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs. Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nagro, David Kaminga, Science of Sound, Cody Foster, Sean S. Tommy Manasco, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Tim Nowak, Tyler Rhines, James Pennington, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, Johnny Morales, Mel Sanders, and welcome aboard Bob Crouch.
Bob Crouch. Man, it's getting crowded up there at that penthouse suite.
I don't know if we'll be able to have more of the hot tubs put in there. I just don't know the weight limits. And
know. So thank you so much to our supporters. You truly make the show go around, and we are so grateful to you. Steve Stine, please tell the audience where they can check you out.
You can go on YouTube and just type in Steve Stine guitar or just Steve Stine. You'll find me, or you can head over to guitarzoom.com and check out my guitar courses and the membership. Brilliant.
Tony Baloney.
Let's just say you need a special pickguard to go with your guitar courses. Mm-hmm. Go over to pickguardian.com. See how I tied that in?
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
That's good.
Yeah.
Pickguardian.com. Check out some of the stuff I have available for sale. But by and large, what I do is custom work.
Your guitar needs some new bling.
Blingy.
Yep. And Tony can do it.
So shoot me an email at info@pickguardian.com.
You got to make one for the guitar that Chase is building me.
Well, of course I will.
Yeah.
I always do.
Awesome. Rob
Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification on Instagram, Facebook, or .com probably goes somewhere, so y'all check that out.
Yeah. So that check out what amp repairs and little crazy things that he's finding in amps.
I like his Instagram stuff.
It is the electronic equivalent of on Instagram when the guys are on the shores in England with the little hammers and they're opening up like the rocks and the little fossils are in them.
I thought you were going
every single time.
This.
No, it's like it's a thing. Anyways, you can email me Todd@theguitarknobs.com. You can also DM me at guitarknobs. We love hearing your thoughts, and we look forward to your further correspondence. Steve Stine, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Awesome. Everybody, make sure you go check out his amazing courses and get yourself better at guitar. Have a fantastic guitar week and subscribe. Love a parade. Like some smart fellas in the world, I try to surround myself with smarter people than I am. So
you are successful.
Yeah.
No.
What?
I'm not doing it this week.
Okay, you're not doing it this week? Okay. We were just watching you, and now you're talking to us, so that's weird.
Yeah, this is totally scripted.
Which, yeah. Here we go. Yeah, get your tap shoes ready, because the rest of it, we put it on autopilot and walk away and go make some microwave popcorn. Steve, are you ready? Are you regretting any of this? But at any point?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Custom pick guards to the stars.
The Prince of Plastic.
Steve Stine, whenever you hear this, it's going to be great.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.